The coffee is dreadful.
Yes, I brought a sandwich.
I see that. You prepared for this meeting by bringing a sandwich.
I prepared for this meeting by reading 400 pages of demographic and economic data. The sandwich was separate.
What are they calling this summit?
An emergency dialogue on the humanitarian architecture of cross-border movement in the contemporary European context.
Good God. In my day, we called it a border problem and solved it before lunch.
In your day, it was a different problem. And lunch was also different.
You are very calm for a woman whose open-door policy is currently the subject of approximately half this agenda.
I have been the subject of agendas for 16 years, Margaret. I find equanimity is more useful than performance in a waiting room. Also, it irritates people, which I confess I find occasionally satisfying.
On that, at least, we agree. Let us speak plainly. A nation that cannot control its borders is not a nation. It is a geography with a flag. And a nation that controls its borders by refusing to look beyond them? What is that? Sovereign. Which is not a dirty word, Angela, regardless of what Brussels has spent 30 years implying. Sovereignty is not the same as isolation. Germany rebuilt itself after 1945 because the world did not treat us as a geography with a flag. It treated us as a country capable of becoming something better. I have not forgotten what it means to need that kind of faith from others. That is a very different situation. It is always a different situation. That is what people say when the principle is inconvenient. You believed in the market as a moral force. So did I, up to a point. But the market does not process human beings, Margaret. It processes units. The moment you begin thinking of people as units, the policy becomes very clean, and the reality becomes very ugly. And the moment you begin thinking of policy as compassion, you stop thinking about consequences. Sentiment is not a strategy. I governed a country, not a feeling. So did I. For longer. With fewer enemies. And I would argue with comparable results. Though I accept that as a matter of some debate. You are more formidable than I expected. Most people are, when you actually speak to them. 2015. 1 million people. You opened the door, unilaterally, without a mandate, without a framework, and said, "We can do it." What possessed you? The photographs. Children on beaches. Families in water. A boy face down in the sand whose name was Alan, and who was 3 years old. I am a scientist by training, Margaret. I deal in data. But there are moments when data is not the instrument you need. That was one of them. And the consequences. The AfD. The fracturing of your coalition. The erosion of trust in centrist governance across the entire continent. Consequences that we are still sitting in this room managing today. Yes. I am aware of the consequences. I was there for all of them. I stand by the decision. I do not stand by every aspect of the implementation. Those are different things. And I have been honest about that distinction. In politics, intention and implementation are the same thing. You are judged by what happened, not by what you meant. Then history will judge us both by what happened.
I want to ask you something, Margaret. And I want you to answer it honestly, not politically. If the boats in the Mediterranean had been full of British people, families from Manchester and Birmingham and Cardiff, fleeing a war, would you have closed the door? That is not a fair question. No, it is not. But it is the only question. Because the moment the answer changes based on who is in the water, that is the moment the principle reveals itself. And we must at least be honest about what our principles actually are, rather than what we say they are. I was not a cruel woman. I know. That is what makes it complicated.
Who is that man? The one with the hair and the absolute certainty that he is the most interesting person in any room.
There are several fitting that description currently. You will need to be more specific.
The one using migration as a theatrical device rather than a policy problem.
Again, still several.
This is what troubles me most about the current moment. Migration is a real problem. It requires real policy. Serious numbers, serious integration frameworks, serious bilateral agreements. Instead, it has become a performance, a flag to wave. The people waving it do not want to solve it. A solved problem cannot be campaigned on.
I will say this, and it does not come easily. We failed to have the honest conversation 20 years ago about integration, about what it actually requires from both sides. I was accused of raising it and accused of not raising it properly. The result is that no one raised it properly. And the space that left was filled by people with considerably less scruple and considerably more volume.
Yes, I include myself in that failure. Integration requires investment, patience, and political honesty about what is difficult. I said, "Wir schaffen das," and I meant it. But I did not say loudly enough, and here is exactly how. And here is what it will cost. And here is what we will ask of everyone involved. That silence was a mistake.
A politician admitting a mistake in public. In my day, that was considered a resignation matter.
In your day, social media did not exist. Now the mistakes exist in perpetuity, regardless of whether you admit them. I find honesty more efficient. Also, less exhausting.
I would have been extraordinary on Twitter.
Yes, that is what concerns me.
She is late. She is prepared. The late ones usually are. They were doing something until the last moment. Did we make it easier for her? Honestly, we made it possible. Whether we made it easier is a different question. We broke the ceilings, and then did not always stop to remove the glass from the floor.
I never asked for it to be easy. I asked for it to be open.
Open is not the same as welcoming. That distinction matters more than we admitted at the time.
If I could tell her one thing, that young woman, or any young woman walking into a room that was not built for her, I would tell her, do not perform strength. Have it. The performance is exhausting, and it gives them something to critique. The thing itself, the actual substance, that is considerably harder to dismiss.
Quietly, I would tell her, the work is the argument. You do not need to announce yourself. You do not need to explain yourself. Govern well. The rest follows. Slowly, imperfectly,
and rarely with the credit attached to the right name. Make peace with that early. It saves considerable energy for the actual problems. And the migration problem? It will not be solved in this room today, but it will be sat with. Sometimes that is where solutions begin. In a room with someone you disagree with, long enough to find a place where the disagreement becomes complicated. We should go in. I still think your 2015 decision was a political catastrophe. I know. And I still think it was the right thing to do. Shall we?